Hi everybody, it's Stephanie again, the Crafty Medic. I wanted to do another video about taking photos, and this one is going to be all about lighting. And in order to talk about lighting, we actually have to go back, way back to some of your high school physics lessons, which I know you're going to be like, what? But I'm going to show you what I mean kind of as we go here. And the important thing to remember is that light, the closer something is to a light source, the brighter it is, but also the harsher the light is going to be. And if you remember from high school physics, light always travels in a straight line. So if you have just a pinpoint of light and it's traveling in a straight line towards something, it's going to hit it and you're going to get a fairly harsh shadow when you're close up. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. You're also going to get it to be the brightest, the most intense as you're closer. And as you're moving away, light follows that inverse square law. So it's not getting darker kind of just on a linear scale. It's actually exponentially getting darker as you move further away. So if you want something to be brighter, you have to move the light source closer to it, but you're also going to be getting a harsher light is what we usually call it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch again so you can see what my camera is seeing. I've got a super funky setup here today. I actually broke out my old PVC camera stand, and I've got parts of that actually clamped to my table because usually I do this with my phone handheld or my camera handheld, but I didn't want to have you guys getting seasick watching my camera bounce around. So I've got that clamped to my table, and this is the setup that I usually use for my photos. So most of my photos on my blog, this is the setup that I'm using with some of these different lighting options, and I'll tell you what I mean in a second. So all I've got is I've got a roll of like a drawer liner vinyl that I actually have hung on my wall, and then I can just pull it down over my desk when I'm ready to take a photo, and I take my photo, and then we're good to go. So the other things that I've got here is I've got three different lights. I've got these ones here. I've got two of these. These are just an older model of OttLight, which is super popular with crafters. And you can control the brightness. You can't control the color on these. The color control is actually for the base, but some of the newer models you control the color too. But I'm going to show you why being able to control the color is actually not that important. Then I have a big ring light that's mounted onto my Archon stand here, and then I have a small ring light as well. Now the one that I've got is this kind of gooseneck version, and this one's actually broken, so it doesn't turn all the way off. That's why I've got it hidden down here. But those are available fairly cheaply on Amazon and stuff, but that's another option. You can also get the little clip-on ring lights, and I used to have one, but it's broken. I can't even find it anymore. It doesn't charge anymore, so I'm not worrying about that. I'm going to show you kind of the look that you get with those with the smaller ring light, because the actual light is the same. It's just the base that it's on. So let me switch over here so that you can see what we're working with. So you can see here I have, I'm out of focus in the background. Let's see if we can get that into focus because we want this in focus here. Hello, camera, follow me. There we go. Okay, and then this is what my camera is seeing. So right now, even though it's fairly dark in here, we actually have a decent picture. This shadow here, this light, that's actually the light that's being cast by my computer, which is right here. So for the most part, you actually don't have to worry too much about it being dark. There's no other light in this room. It's dark outside. It's just my computer screen, and I do have one, you can see how that kind of changes. I do have one OttLight here just so that you could see me, but I'll actually turn that off and you can see. So this is being lit purely by the screen of my computer. So what we can do is we can start bringing light into this. So I'm going to bring one of my OttLights in here because this is something that most people have some kind of desk light available to them. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. And we can adjust the brightness, and it'll kind of stepwise come up. So you can see we have this really harsh shadow in the back. As it gets closer, it gets brighter. As we move it further away, it gets softer, but you can see the effects on that shadow. So a really easy trick to make this better is actually to just add another light. So I'm just going to turn this one on this side around, and we're going to turn this one on. And you can see now that shadow is not quite as harsh, but now we have one on the other side here as well. And you can kind of see how I have two different lights there. This is a great basic setup for lighting if this is all you have. You do have to be a little bit careful with your shadows, but one really quick and easy thing you can do, because remember, we're dealing with physics and the further light travels, the softer it is, but the darker it is too. We're just going to turn these lights around. So this is what I mean when I say bouncing a light off of a ceiling or a wall. All I'm doing is I'm turning this around so that this light is hitting the wall and the ceiling behind me. Now I have kind of a gray and white wall and ceiling, but I'm essentially turning that whole corner up there is turning into a light source now. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Oops, and my camera froze. So let me show you that again. My camera just went, or my phone just went to sleep there. So there's with the lights straight on to the project. And then if we bounce it, you get a dimmer, bit softer light. And I'm just going to touch on here to get it to focus. But you can see how with that light being further away, we've now lost those shadows. It is a little bit darker, so you may have to hold your camera a little bit steadier, or it might be a little bit grainier even, but you've got a much softer light because you've essentially turned those walls and everything up into the corners, that you're actually getting a lot softer light because it's a bigger light source. Okay, let's turn these guys off, and I'm going to show you some stuff about ring lights. Now, ring lights are actually something that comes from the fashion industry. And the reason why is that they create, on a face, they create kind of a shadowless look. But it's not a true shadowless, there's no such thing as shadowless, basically. So what they do, and you can really see it clearly with these small ring lights, is they create a shadow all the way around. So what it does is, because the light is around the camera, it creates a shadow going away from the camera. Now this is a small one, and so you can see it very clearly, and I'll show you the big one in a second where it's a lot more diffuse, because again, your light source is bigger. Size matters when it comes to lighting. What I actually like to use these little ones for is just for some fill. And what fill is it's that light that fills in any of the shadows. So if we were to have our alt light here, and we had that as our main light, the ring light is still there. You can still see this shadow around, and it's just filling in some of those shadows. If we didn't have that ring light, this is what this would look like that. And then when we turn it on, you're just filling in a little bit of those shadows. So that's another option if you do have a ring light, especially those little clip-on ones. They're not very strong, they're not very bright, but that would be an option. Yeah, so that's what those are good for. You can also use them just like a regular desk light, move them off of the camera, and then see how that light is very similar to the alt light. But what I wanted to show you here, and you kind of saw it already, is that color temperature. So these ones, I can control the color temperature. Now watch what my camera does when I change the color temperature. So this is a very cool light. See how it adjusts back to what the camera thinks is neutral? So unless you have multiple sources of light that are different color temperatures, it actually doesn't matter because your camera will adjust for it. And then see, there it goes very warm, and then it adjusts back down to neutral. This is kind of the neutral that I usually use, but what I wanted to show you was if you have something that is a very strong color in your image, how it actually changes the color temperature. So I'm adding this blue. See how my background changed to that really dark orange? That's because it's actually trying to make that whole picture neutral. So when I end up with a lot of blue in my picture, it makes the whole picture too warm. And then when it comes away, it adjusts it again. So it's always trying to adjust everything to make that whole picture a neutral gray. So that's why sometimes your pictures will have a bit of a tone to them. It's probably because you have a lot of a specific color in your picture. So what I like to do is I like to always have a little bit of white or a little bit of a neutral in my picture, and then my background. See, even my hand, because it's trying to adjust my hand to neutral, the background goes quite blue because my hand is quite orange. So that's just a quick little thing there. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this and I'm gonna bring in my big ring light. And now you're gonna see the difference that I meant about that fill and that shadow. Let me turn this on. This is gonna be bright. This is a very bright light. If I find the right, there we go. All right, so now I've got a much bigger ring light, like much, much bigger. And these are the ones that are quite popular as overhead lights. You don't have to use them shooting through the camera, but they're a great option because they do provide that fill light. Now we still have shadows. Again, these are not taking the shadows away. There's no such thing. Realistically, we're not going to get that far into physics. Light doesn't really bend. Again, just if you're super into physics, just ignore everything I just said and just be smug about it. But see how we still have this shadow in the background and even a little bit of a line over here. Because we still have a light source, it's just much bigger. And that's the benefit of these lights, is that that light source is much bigger. So now what we're going to do is, again, I'm going to show you how I actually use this light. And what we're going to do is we're going to pop this up and off of the camera. And I'm just going to adjust this stand a little bit so that I can get it up, up, up above my project. It's going to be this nice, bright, big light. Again, this is great. Oops, my camera fell asleep again. My phone fell asleep again. There we go. My phone doesn't think this is nearly as interesting as we do. All right, so you still have that bit of a shadow there, a bit of a shadow around, but it's not as noticeable because this light source is bigger. And again, we can make this light source even bigger just by flipping this around and bouncing it again off the ceiling, off the walls, and you can see how everything is a little bit more neutral. Again, it's a little bit darker too, and what we can do is we can just brighten it up right in the camera there. Hopefully this helped. Again, this is part of my content creation series. Again, this is just a little free video that I did, and I'm going to be doing my full training on April 17th. So if you haven't registered for that yet, there is still time to get in on that. And hopefully this helped and you learned something. Happy stamping. Bye.